Hey everybody, welcome back to another design tutorial in Adobe Xd, and I'm Puneet, and today we'll be looking at scroll animations in Adobe Xd, which is not supported by default, but I found a couple of ways you can actually implement scrolling and animation together, and this is one of the examples. If I just scroll horizontally, see how things just transform from one screen to the other, which is pretty cool, I guess. And not just horizontal scroll, we can also activate vertical scroll. For example, if I just scroll here, from here, I can then come back like this. So this is pretty cool. It blurs out and it's a nice effect. And also finally, something which is very useful, very clean and very useful. So if I just drag from here, as you can see, now this gets fixed. So every time I just scroll here, it just gets fixed now, and if I scroll back up, it just comes like this. So this is pretty cool. I think this will be very useful for you guys. So without further ado, let's just get started with the tutorial. Now first of all, what I'll do is, okay, so for the first design, I'm not gonna show you guys how to make these designs. They're pretty simple, just very basic, just to show you guys this effect. So for this first effect, what we're going to do is we're going to have two gradients. And how do I have two gradients? I'll just show you in a second. So what I'll do is I'll create a rectangle over an image just like this, and make sure it has that gradient. I've already saved this gradient for ease of use, obviously, and by the way, I'll have everything linked down in the description, so you can download this XD file from the description. Here what I'm going to do is, now we have this purple gradient. How do we bring in the red one? So what I'll do is I'll create another gradient right next to this, but I'll make sure this is large, because this will come from the top to fit in this, to just give it that little parallax gradient effect, if that makes sense to you guys. And here what I'll do is I'll just change the color to this red, just like that. And inside here, because of course we can't have this outside this artboard, because it'll consider it a separate entity. So what I'm going to do is just put it right next to this artboard and create another rectangle over just this artboard. I don't want it to come outside. Okay, so what I'll do is select this white rectangle, this red rectangle, and make sure that this red rectangle is below this white one. So just like this. And select this red, white, and the purple rectangle, and just say Command Shift M to mask it. See how it's masked these two together? But here what we have to do is make sure that this red one is outside the artboard. Now this is one entity. I think you guys get this. Now what I'm going to do is just make sure all the positions are correct. And here I'll just duplicate this artboard. And in the second artboard, I'll just push this text down here and reduce the opacity to 0. That's it. And I'll just shift this purple one just for 1 second and make sure that this double click and just increase or expand, scale up this image basically, just like this. And that'll give it that increase in size effect. That's pretty cool. And in the next artboard, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this image. I'm going to change this image to this Ferrari image that I've brought in, right? And I want this to be big first when we get this, just like this. How about that? Yeah, perfect. And I'll just make sure, if I double click in here, since this is a mask, I'll be able to shift this purple to the left, and also kind of shift it to the bottom as well. So as it's moving, it'll also move towards the bottom. And also I'll shift this red one here, just like that. Now that's pretty perfect to me. Now what I'm going to do is, here in the second artboard, I'm going to do something with the text. So I'll just copy this text over here, so a duplicate of that text. And here what I'm going to say is Ferrari 821, whatever model number that is, in the year 2004, and obviously we'll jack this up to $45,000. That's pretty expensive. And here what I'm going to do is place a rectangle above this so as to mask this. So just below this, so select both of them and say Command Shift M, and that's it. Copy this over to the third artboard, and in third artboard, since this is now masked, I can just move the mask around just like this. So make sure that the right point is now on the left, just like that, and the text is completely hidden, just like that. And here obviously we will do the same with the mask, just bring it right here so that the text is hidden. And one more artboard will do the trick, and the text will basically, if I click here, the mask group 4, I guess, yes, and just shift these anchor points right here so that it's now full width and I can see the entire text right here. So I will now just prototype this and click on That's easy as that. Now for prototyping, what I'll do, I'll create a rectangle over this to act as like a scroll assistant, so as to say, and just reduce the opacity to 0. Just copy this over here, and what I want you to do is just, you know, drag this rectangle towards the edge like this. You can't see it, but it's now here on the edge, just like that. And same thing, I'll just copy over to this third one, and also to this fourth one. So that's all we needed to do, right? Now I'll say prototype, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, the first one, I'll just shift this arrow to the second artboard and say auto animate. Rather than saying tap, I'll say drag, and here in the easing I'll say ease in out. That's what we want. And for this second artboard, I'll just do the same thing, but I'll change this to time. So remember to select the entire artboard and not anything inside it. And we'll say auto animate, oops, and ease in out 0.3 seconds. Same for this artboard, time 0.3 seconds will just reach here. And if I drag this little panel here, I should be able to get it to be here, the first artboard, so just to make it come back. And let's try this out. If I drag this, see how it functions. And we did forget one thing though, we need to prototype this and make sure time 0 seconds, 0.3 seconds, and make sure this also comes to this. Let's try this out. If I drag it, see how it smoothly shifts to the other artboard. That's perfect. One more effect that we're going to add here is make sure that this image inside this artboard is now smaller, just to give it that shift effect. That's pretty cool, just like that. And we'll just bring this back here. So let's try this out now. If I drag this out, see how it drags and it just appears just like that. And if I drag this panel right back in, oops, I did something wrong. No issues, we all make mistakes. So if here I, rather than saying tap, I had to say drag back to the first artboard. Let's try this out again, and there you go. And if I drag it back in, see how it just smoothly comes back. So that was a little you know, a little finicky, but it worked out for us, and you can work on it more, just create more artboards if you want. Okay, so for the second effect, which is the fixed scroll effect, what we're going to do is just create a basic artboard like this with some basic you know, like a basic nav bar on the top and these cards here. So just a basic UI. I will be linking the XD file down in the description, so go check it out, and just duplicate it right here also. And in the second artboard, it's very simple. All you need to do is make sure that you are reducing the opacity of this header to 0, and just drag this to the top like this, just like that. And make sure that India, USA, all these countries are moving along with this title, so as to say. Perfect. And that's all we want. And we will also shift these towards the top, closer to this, so about 20 pixels from that. Perfect. And now what I'm going to do is prototype this. That's the next step. And here on dragging this card, we should be able to get this. So if you're, you know, working with a list or a number of items, you can just put the drag component on those number of items. So just drag this to the second artboard and say drag instead of tap. Say auto animate should be always on, and just say ease in out. That's fine. And same for the second artboard, just bring it right back and it's already set up. So let's try this out. Let's prototype this. If I drag this just like that, see how it's now fixed. Now to make sure that this stays fixed, what I'm going to do is go back to design and just select all of this on top and say, right now you can't see the fixed position here because now Adobe has shifted it to the prototype panel right here. So I'll just say fixed position when scrolling, and that's it. So again, back to the first one, and if I drag it here, perfect. How do I test this? What I'm going to do is just increase the size of this artboard to test the scroll, right? The scroll actually works. So if I drag this, and if I again drag this page, see how this line stays fixed. However, everything else is now in position like this, and if I drag this top card back again, it's back again to the original state. That's pretty cool. I've actually done a full video on this step by step, you know, like for beginners, and I'll be linking that video down in the description, also up in the iCard, so that you guys can just reach for it and check that scroll video out as well. And this is pretty interesting. Now for the last one, to create the blur effect, how do you do that? Okay, so the last effect is pretty simple once you understand it. One thing in Adobe Xd you can't do right now is change the blur of a certain object from one screen to the other. It just doesn't animate. So for that, what we're going to do is take a rectangle over this image and then produce a background blur for that. So make sure this is behind this mountains text, and make sure that background blur on the right is on right here. As you can see, it's now blurred out. This is pretty cool. Just decrease this to something which is easy on the eyes, so about 15 I guess should do it. You can increase or decrease the opacity just like this. I'm just gonna keep it a 0, right? And everything else is 0. Maybe reduce this to about 10. Yeah, that is much easier on the eyes. And what I'm gonna do is reduce the opacity of just this rectangle. So simple as clicking on that rectangle and just reducing the opacity to 0. Perfect. So this is rectangle 21. We're going to remember that. And above this, again, you can either trigger it with this card or just create another rectangle to create a trigger. Basically, the whole concept to do this is create a trigger. So I'm just going to use this card as a trigger. I'm just going to duplicate this artboard, and in the second artboard I'll decrease the height of this element, which is the blurred rectangle, just to make sure that I can see it. I'll just make sure it's higher opacity. So I'm going to reduce the height up till here, about that's fine, and also bring this mountains heading to the top just like this. Perfect. And bring this image to the top as well. So let me just fix this. Perfect. And as you can see, if I drag the image out, the image adjusts automatically. That's pretty cool. So I'm just going to drag these cards to the top as well. That's how it's supposed to work, and there you go. So I'm going to prototype mode, click on this first card and bring it to the second artboard. Say drag, auto animate should be on always, and ease in out. And I'll do the same for the second artboard. Just drag it and put it here. Perfect. And I'll try this out now. If I drag this to the top, see how this becomes smaller and it blurs out, and it's pretty cool. So that I have less focus on the header or the navigation bar and more focus on my cards. And just drag it back here just to create this cool slide effect, just like that. Now that was pretty cool. I hope you liked that video. If you did, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon to get all my videos before everyone else. And I post every Monday and Thursday. Please do give a like on this video, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless.